The United Nations envoy Hans Grunberg says fighting must stop and political talks to start. The United States spots Iranian arms and oil in the Arabian Sea, meant for supporting Houthis. The United States Aid Agency says millions of Yemeni children are out of school due to the conflict. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. The UN envoy Hans Grunberg said the ongoing military escalation in Yemen is deeply alarming. He called on all parties for restraint and the escalation of violence. Grunberg added that military options will not result in sustainable solutions, noting that all parties should cooperate with UN efforts to revive a political process aimed at reaching a just and negotiated settlement to the conflict. The United States Justice Department said the U.S. Navy seized 2 large caches of Iranian arms. The department said the caches included 171 surface-to-air missiles, 8 anti-tank missiles, as well as around 1.1 million barrels of Iranian oil products. The U.S. Navy seized the weapons from 2 vessels in the Arabian Sea. According to the statement, Iran's Revolutionary Guard is behind the shipments that were to be sent to Houthis. The National Resistance managed to seize and dismantle a Houthi spy cell in Al Khoukha district of Hodeidah. The National Resistance said the cell was assigned by the Houthi militia to collect information about the movements and locations of the joint forces. The United Nations said more than 25,000 people were displaced from Hodeidah as a result of the escalation of fighting since last November. This was stated in a report by the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs on the humanitarian situation in Yemen. The report stated that most of those who were moved from their home were displaced within the governorate. Yesterday, a Houthi ballistic missile hit a school and killed 8 civilians on the outskirts of Magbana district west of Taiz. Local residents said the missile attack killed 8 citizens, while 17 others were injured, most of them seriously. The United States Agency for Development warned that more than 8 million school-age children are at risk of dropping out of education. The agency said the war and the outbreak of the coronavirus in Yemen has affected a lot of children, adding that it registered 23,585 children in non-formal or rehabilitation programs. Houthis continue targeting education. Schools were not only subjected to bullets and bombings, but also they have continued to alter the Yemeni identity and education since their control of the capital, Sana'a. More in the following report.
Since the start of the conflict in Yemen, Houthis' attacks on schools and universities haven't been limited to bullets and bombs. They seek control over these institutions and dominating the education sector. Through this sector, Houthis can have easy access to a large number of Yemenis to mobilize and recruit. Houthis know that their beliefs and ideology are not accepted by the wide range of Yemeni society, especially young people. Therefore, they target the education sector to change the identity and national principles in the curriculums and replace them with their sectarian ideology and goals, which will make the next generations easier to control and influence. To achieve their goals, Houthis fired and persecuted many experienced professors and university administrators and replaced them with often unqualified supporters. They have recruited students and staff to monitor and report on other students and staff who express opposition to the Houthis or Iran. To transform the national and cultural identity, Houthis not only replaced the staff, they also changed the names of the schools. For example, the Babel School is now referred to as September 21 School, the date when Sana'a was captured by the Houthis in 2014. Many education facilities in the Houthis-controlled areas have been used to recruit and train child soldiers, while others serve as prisons. The Houthis have also used some schools and universities for military purposes, notably storing weapons, which in turn cause suffering and deprivation of students' rights to education.
يقولون احنا معنا مدرسة وإحنا لا يوجد مدارس، يوم ندرس بالأحوال، يوم ندرس بالسطح، يوم ندرس بالشارع، قالوا أنا 4 سنين نفسي نتغير إلى المدرسة.
What the Houthis are doing to schools and universities in Yemen will have acute consequences for the country's education sector. Many parents have prevented their children from completing their studies as a result of the change of the curriculum or their inability to pay the fees Houthis have imposed on public schools that once provided free education. The lack of proper schooling and poor education will have extremely negative effects on the population in the country. Education, while it may not be an immediate concern during the conflict, is highly crucial for post-conflict peace sustainability. The impact will be catastrophic. It will create generations with sectarian and racist ideas, with an extremist religious identity instead of a national identity, a low level of scientific education, and an increase in illiteracy. A solution is needed to save the education sector in Yemen and stop the Houthis from transforming schools into arenas for recruiting and mobilizing minors. Education needs to be kept out of the conflict so as not to destroy the innocence and the future of those children.
To Ma'rib, the government forces thwarted an attack launched by the Houthi militia on their positions. Military sources said that government forces backed by tribes fought fierce battles with the Houthis following an attack by the militia on its positions on Danna front. During those clashes, the government forces shot down 2 Houthi drones in addition to destroying 5 combat vehicles in separate locations. The clashes resulted in the killing and wounding of several Houthi militants. Houthi rebels aim to seize the oil-rich Ma'rib that hosts more than 3 million Yemenis, most of whom are displaced. In their current aggression over the city, people flee, fearing for their lives. This caused the largest displacement wave in the last decade in war-torn Yemen. More about this is in the following report.
Houthi militia escalation in Ma'rib has created the largest displacement crisis in Yemen in a decade, the executive unit for the management of IDP said. Hostilities have escalated in Ma'rib Governorate and surrounding areas in the last 2 months, more than they have at any time this year, causing massive displacement as well as restricting civilian movement and humanitarian access to people in need. Houthis' ongoing military escalation on Ma'rib's southern districts during September, October, November and December has caused the displacement of more than 96,328 people. This is one of the largest waves of displacement in Yemen during the past decade. According to the United Nations, the situation continued to worsen, forcing people already settled on displacement sites to flee, with hostilities surging towards Ma'rib city, pointing out that up to 11 cluster-managed sites were forced to close. Families from areas of previous displacement arrive daily after they have lost their security and sources of livelihood, and they take long and difficult roads after Houthi militias took control of their areas in search of a dignified and better life. Displacement sites within districts of Ma'rib and Al-Wadi suffer from overcrowding of thousands of families and dozens of camps within their geographical scope and surrounding areas. Tragedy and suffering experienced by the displaced families from their areas greatly multiplies the burdens, tasks, and needs and challenges. Governmental unit to oversee IDP camps opened 42 new sites during the past 3 months in Al-Wadi district for the new displaced families. The executive unit called on the international community, United Nations, international organizations to assume their responsibility as a result of these developments, which portend a bad humanitarian disaster for these displaced families. Likewise, United Nations in Yemen said that additional funding is needed to sustain and scale up the aid operation in Ma'rib for the next 3 months, noting that Yemen humanitarian response plan for 2021 was only 57% funded by the end of November, stressing that critical sectors such as health, camp management and protection are struggling to meet the surging needs.
Coming next. International consensus on supporting the reshuffling of Central Bank Board.
راتب الواحد 120 ألف والكيس الدقيق ب18 ألف والكيس السكر اليوم ب20 ألف. كم يعني بيعطي هذا الراتب كامل كيس سكر وكيس دقيق؟
المواطن اليمني يعيش في أزمة إنسانية وغذائية مؤلمة من غلاء الأسعار وفحشة الأسعار وغلاء الصرف والعملة الأجنبية في البلد.
حالتي الحين حالة لما ندفنش القيلة ما نقدرش ناكل الأكل داخل ما إحنا بحاجة صعبة.
Welcome back. In Riyadh, the United States Chargé d'Affaires Kathy Wesley pledged that her country will support comprehensive economic reforms to benefit the Yemeni people. This came during her meeting with the new central bank governor Ahmed Ghalib, where they discussed the need for continued strong international cooperation and financial assistance to help shore up Yemen's economy. For his part, the U.S. Special Envoy Tim Lenderking said Washington welcomes the appointment of a new board for the Central Bank of Yemen. He called on donors to support the central bank's efforts to stabilize Yemen's economy, adding that such support is urgently needed and will bring much-needed relief for Yemenis. The last decree to reform the central bank aims to end the economic collapse in Yemen. The decree was welcomed by both local and international circles in hope that it will get the country back to stability. The following report looks into the expected results of such reshuffling.
Reshuffle of the board of the Yemeni Central Bank is seen as a new step to stitch the ailing economy. Ahmed Ghalib, 65, was appointed a new governor and chairman of the Central Bank of Yemen's board. The move comes as the war-ravaged country faces its worst economic and humanitarian crisis since the conflict began in 2015. Some Yemeni economic analysts are optimistic about the new administration. According to analysts, Ghalib's appointment as governor of the central bank was one of the best decisions that had been taken. The newly appointed governor is known for his long experience in the economic field. He is widely known as a banking specialist, so he might be able to come up with urgent solutions to stop the unprecedented collapse of the local currency. However, pushing back the economy is hard for him alone. Experts say he must be supported by international donors, and an urgent new cash injection is a must at this critical time to help the new administration of the bank to form new reserves of foreign currency and to recontrol the banking market. On the other hand, skepticism arose. Some economists say that appointment of a new board wouldn't help to stop the local currency slide unless bold banking policies are introduced by the Yemeni government. As to them, the new board of directors will not be able to do anything unless the government revives the oil exports and deposits all state revenues in the central bank. On the ground, the Yemeni rial days ago crossed the barrier of $1,700. This progressive loss has left millions of Yemenis starving, as the majority of population can no longer afford basic commodities. Hope is still there that the new board of the central bank will do anything to bring about change in a stagnant, near-collapsing economy.
An international aid organization said that about half of Yemeni families limited their meals due to the high inflation. In a survey issued by the Norwegian Council for Refugees, it said inflation in Yemen has pushed families to further reduce their meals, bringing them closer to starvation and malnutrition. The organization added that almost 1 out of every 2 families reduced the number of daily meals because they could not afford them. According to the statement, 99% of the people surveyed are no longer able to buy meat, chicken, fruit, milk, or rice because of their high prices. The UNICEF said it needs more than $480 million to fund its urgent humanitarian response plan. It added that these funds will serve the needs of 11.3 million Yemeni children over the next year. According to UNICEF, about 400,000 Yemeni children are suffering from severe acute malnutrition. 1.7 million children are internally displaced. More than 2 million children are out of school, and about 8.5 million children do not have access to safe water. Coronavirus has affected all sections in Yemen. Women, however, are greatly affected by the pandemic in light of the lack of services and the war that is ravaging through the economy. More in the following report.
Women in Yemen are suffering on a daily basis with many different reasons, making their lives hard. COVID-19 has made it even harder for many Yemeni women to function their lives properly. Unfortunately, the increasing vulnerability of women has not been acknowledged by most COVID-19 related policies. Whether female health workers or housewives, women have been at the front line of dealing with the pandemic. Many Yemeni women found success in their new trades, which made them feel empowered. But with the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic, this has cut short their success, and with it hopes of a better life. Many small businesses have closed, and the closure of schools has increased the burden of care for mothers. The rate of healthy violence against women in Yemen was already very high in the context of the ongoing conflict in 2017. UNFPA had recorded 2.6 million women and girls which were at risk of gender-based violence. With the added economic, health, and social stressors of COVID-19, domestic violence cases are on the rise. Many Yemeni women have shown a high level of flexibility and have worked hard to survive and create their own opportunities during the war. But unfortunately, the COVID-19 outbreak has affected them badly. Women in Yemen have been paying the price of the conflict in the country, and now they are bearing the burden of COVID-19. These Yemeni women need support, and they just need peace in their country.
The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 4 new cases of the COVID-19 in 2 governments. Committee officials said on Twitter that 3 cases were recorded in Hadramaut and 1 in El Mahra. Also, 5 recovered cases were recorded and 1 death. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 10,047, including 1,956 deaths and 6,928 cases of recovery. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The United Nations envoy Hans Grunberg says fighting must stop and political talks to start. The United States supports Iranian arms and oil in the Arabian Sea, meant for supporting Houthis. The United States Aid Agency says millions of Yemeni children are out of school due to the conflict. This is the end of the news. It was Rushan Fouet. Thank you for watching.